going to wave the microphone because it's more trouble than it's worth. Is this not the most beautiful building you have ever seen? I want to thank all the volunteers that staff it every day, dozens and dozens of hours per month, hundreds of hours. It's just the most beautiful indoor space I can think of in this town. And Carnegie wanted the young democracy in the 1920s to have beautiful spaces, banks and libraries to inspire people. And you know, he was a very revolutionary figure. In those days, he gave the equivalent of $2 billion. $2 billion. Now Gates has just given him billion. He has doubled that. But he only gave the buildings. He wanted the towns to perpetuate it and keep them going. It was like, he said, he believed, give them a fish and you make people dependent. Give them a fishing pole and you teach people how to fish. It was like retooling, not redistribution. He wanted everyone to have access to education, schools, books. And I can only imagine how many people in this country have gotten themselves ahead through these wonderful libraries. I know I was at a function recently with Dr. Leanne Carlson, the former president of the New York City Public Library, which is also a Carnegie Library. And he was at an event with all the Supreme Court justices. And Justice Thomas came up to him and said, "You with the Carnegie organization?" And Dr. Gore said, "Yeah." He said, "You know, I owe my entire education to a Carnegie library down in the South, where a librarian let me come in after hours, when in those days only white people could come in. And this librarian let Justice Thomas come in, and now he's a Supreme Court justice." So before I introduce the candidates, I just want to thank some key people. And that is the Friends of the Bellevue Avenue Library, especially Sue Ridley, Ed Robin, and Ilmar Van. All the notices that you have received, you can thank Sue Ridley for. I want to also thank the volunteers, of course, and oh, by the way, we're looking for new members to the Friends of the Bellevue Avenue Library. Please join us. We have a lot of fun every 2 or 3 weeks. If you want to make a checkout, Friends of the Bellevue Avenue Library, we gave $5,000 directly to the foundation, which in turn turned it over to the library for materials for this wonderful branch. So, without further ado, we have 11 candidates. 4 minutes each, please. And I'm going to give you them in alphabetical order. And try to remember the person before you. It's kind of like those spelling tests. Okay, Dr. Renee Baskerville cannot speak to you, but she is here. What a wonderful person she is. She's a great support. Next, Dr. Leanne Carlson. Number 3, Bill Herlock. Number 4, Patricia Hudd. Number 5, Robert Jackson. Number 6, Jeffrey Jacobson. Next, Robin Schleger. Walter Springer. Oh. Selma? Yeah. Selma, I gotta pronounce your last name. Selma's gonna go first. Selma.
You can't pronounce your last name.
Selma, I'm sorry. Walter, okay. Just for that, you get to go first. Walter Springer, Chris Swenson, Karen Turner, Catherine Weller-Deming, and last but not least, Peter Zorich. So, without further ado, Selma, would you want to go in reverse just for change? And Rich is here. Rich Murnick also.
Can I be first? I mean,
yeah.
No, you gotta toss it up.
All my life. All my life.
I used to be first name with S, so I know how you feel.
Sure. Wow, that's a surprise. I used to go last all my life. I'm going to do the Rich Murnick, Phil Donahue routine right now. So first of all, thank you all for coming. My name is Peter Zorich. I am running at large with the Real Progress Montclair slate. I'm a Montclair native. I've been here all my life. Went through the public school system. I'm a Montclair high school, a 1986 graduate. I remember coming to this library with my sister who went to Glenfield, excuse me, not here, but I went to Glenfield. So this place, I haven't been here in 30 years at least. It's a fantastic place. So just briefly about my history here in town. Again, I went to the public school system. I have 2 kids in the public schools, one at Glenfield and one at Hillside. A little family history. A little over 40 years ago, my parents moved into Montclair. Thank you for that. My parents moved here in Montclair from New York City and started a theater company called the Whole Theater Company. Supporters here, thank you. The theater became kind of a cornerstone of the artistic community here in town. It was a fantastic asset to the town. It lasted about 20-something years, and it was just a fantastic kind of asset to the town. Just a great way for me to grow up in town and experience it. Professionally, I've worked as a television news producer for the last 20 years. Primarily producing political talk shows at various cable news networks, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, Bloomberg, covering political campaigns, presidential campaigns, conventions. Now I run my own political, I have a media consulting company where I help politicians and business leaders kind of with media outreach. 4 years ago, I ran for town council. Like many of you, I have been, kind of commuting in and out of the city, working, 40, 50 hours a week, trying to support my family, and just, getting dismayed year after year over the crushing tax increases, the compounding debt, and I really felt like I needed to try and do something about it. So I threw my hat in a ring, and just a kind of an anecdotal story. Some of you may have heard this before. I tend to tell this story a lot. But I was going door to door 4 years ago, and I did knock on a door on Grove Street. Guy came to the door, happened to be one of my 4th and 5th grade teachers from Hillside School. His name was Kevin McGrath. He was one of the best teachers in the school system, and to this day is kind of legendary in my generation here in town. And he said he would support me, and he did, and I happened to, unfortunately, came up a little bit short in that election. So fast forward 4 years from then, the same issues that I was talking about then are still festering now. Taxes have doubled in 10 years. We're sitting on a mountain of debt that's consuming about 25% of our municipal budget. So I started calling around and looking for support from some of the people that had supported me before. I called Kevin McGrath, the former teacher, and asked him if he would support me this time around. And right away he said, yes, I would support you, except I don't live in Montclair anymore. I moved to Toto. I can't afford the taxes anymore. So just short, long story short, if a guy like Kevin McGrath can't afford to live in Montclair, there's really something wrong. The group that I'm running with, Real Progress Montclair, represents the greatest chance for real change. We will challenge the status quo, and without that, Montclair is on an unsustainable path. So we need that kind of a change to really make a difference. Well, thank you.
Selma, please, take over. Second, and not last at all, please.
Can you all hear me? Do I need to use this?
No.
No, okay, good.
Use it.
Use it. Okay. We can't all the way back, so.
No, I find it a little bit, I'm a hand talker, as some of you probably have seen. So it encumbers me to use this appendage, and I don't like to. Anyway, first of all, my name is Selma of the Civic. Yes, the funny name, Selma of the Civic. The easiest way to pronounce it, think of 2 cars, Audi and Civic. Say it in one shot. Right? I got everybody? Okay. So thank you to the Friends of the Bellevue Avenue branch for having me here today. I had a pleasure meeting a couple of weeks ago. They hosted their Board of Trustees meeting. They invited me over to meet me. So I went, and now I know everybody in person, which is awesome. So a few things about me. Why am I running for the 2nd Ward Council? Well, simple answer. I love this town. Since my husband and I moved to Montclair 4 years ago, with our family. I've become what I'd like to believe is the limited time that I have available to me. I've become a member of the community. My kids started Montclair Community Pre-K, and I'm now a member of the Montclair Community Pre-K Association. I'm a member of the Montclair Art Museum, of Leanne Carlson, and so on and so forth, just now to kind of hone on the same thing. Now, why did I decide to run? Well, when you look at our town, what are some of the major problems that we have? We have very high taxes that keep on increasing. We have a mountain of debt. We have so-so schools. We have closing library branches. So when we look at this whole thing, what is the biggest problem? How do we manage our money? When you peel back all of these layers, how do we manage our money? So, what do I know about managing money? What you may not know about me is that I have spent about 10 years in real estate management, working in different organizations. As somebody, I mentioned that in one of the blogs, and yes, I used to work for Leanne Helmsley. So I managed the accounting for 230 Park Avenue, which is a flagship building in their portfolio, the Helmsley building. 420 Lexington Avenue, which is a Grey Bar building, the one above the Grand Central Station. Later on, I moved to work for a small company called RFR Realty that manages the Lever House, which is 390 Park Avenue, then 375 Park Avenue across the street, Seagram's building. After I graduated in 2004 with a master's degree in real estate finance and investment, I decided to switch courses a little bit and turn to debt underwriting. I worked for various companies as a consultant, Wall Street companies, Morgan Stanley, Credit Suisse, UBS, and so on, and I've underwritten anywhere between up to $5 billion in commercial mortgage-backed securities. So I know a couple of things about debt as well. So what do I know about managing small towns and small businesses with limited resources? Well, for the last 4 years, I owned a little company called Woolly Boo, which is based here in town. We manufacture children's bedding in my basement. We're proud to be US made, we're proud to be New Jersey made. We source our wool in South Jersey. We source our cottons in North Carolina, and we make it in our basement, and we sell it locally as well. So I know how to manage small business with limited amount of time and resources. Thank you for your time. This is pretty much all I have to say. So if you have any questions, please check out my Facebook page. It's facebook.com/Selma Montclair. Or my Twitter handle is at Selma_Audi Civic. And you can see everything there. And obviously I've written and answered a bunch of questions to different blogs and newspapers in town. It's all out there, so I'm here and I'm available to help you. Last week, the one thing that I forgot to mention, 2 weeks ago when we did school tours, my son started kindergarten in September, and we went to watch him, and the principal of the school, Dr. Teese, said something during the meeting, and it really resonated with me. He said, if the community believes that it's done building its community, there's something wrong with that community. So my message to you throughout this campaign was, let's get to work. Thank you.
We're going to go in alphabetical order, and what I suggest is after everybody speaks, if you have a question for a particular candidate, then just say, Mr. So-and-so or Ms. So-and-so, please answer the following question. So here we are with Leanne.
Hi, thank you. I'm Leanne Carlson. I'm running for Councilor at Large with the Real Progress Montclair slate. I moved to Montclair 9 years ago with my husband and my 2 kids. I'm originally from the Midwest. When it came time to move to the tri-state area, we spent a long time, about 9 months, trying to find the place that really felt right to us. We looked everywhere. Finally, in talking to people, they started to say, you know, you should really look at Montclair. So we came here, we drove around. I mean, it's beautiful. But it wasn't until we spent time hanging out, having lunch and coffee at the Bluestone Diner, when we said, you know what, this place speaks to us. This has that sense of genuineness that we're looking for. And 9 years later, I can tell you that we made the right choice. The reason I'm running is about 4 years ago, I became very concerned about Montclair becoming unaffordable to an increasing number of people. I started hearing it from people everywhere. My daughter came home, she took art classes in this great little, an artist in town. She teaches in her little carriage house, and she said to Livy, she said, you know, the problem with being an artist, well, she didn't say the problem, but she said the thing with being an artist is it's really hard to live in Montclair. And my daughter came home and she said, Mom, you know, my teacher said I'm not going to afford to live here if I'm an artist. Would you pay my property taxes? And I, of course, being a soft touch, said, of course, honey. So I started paying attention to how the town is doing things, which led me to the Concerned Citizens of Montclair group. It's a grassroots organization. I was a founding member along with Karen Turner, which is where we met. And I really started focusing on our operations. How is our town providing its services? And how are other towns, you know, providing their services? And, you know, as you know, municipalities across the nation, across the world really, are all grappling with the same problems. But some of them have taken it on, and they've figured out different ways to do things. And I think if any town is able to be forward-thinking and to embrace change, it's Montclair. I have a skill set that I think lends itself to what I think a real change government needs. I'm an engineer by training. My career started as a management consultant for Anderson Consulting, and then I was a brand manager for IBM. In both positions, my job was to study either an industry or a company, look for inefficiencies, and come up with a new way of doing something. And I think that's really what we need to do now. My daughter is now a freshman at the high school, and surprisingly, she doesn't really want to hang out with me anymore. So I thought, I have time, I think I have the skills, and I have the will to really take a clear-eyed look at what needs to be done. And so that's why I finally, at the last minute, I thought I would just be kind of behind the scenes, but Karen and I were talking, and we're like, you know what? You really need people at the table who can debate the issues in a substantive way with a very open-minded approach, and I think that we can do this, and I think it needs to be done, and that's why I decided to run. So thank you.
I hate being so far away from the crowd. I want to thank the Friends of the Bellevue Avenue branch, the Montclair Library, and the Upper Montclair Business Association for sponsoring this event this afternoon. Thank you. And I want to thank you all for coming out this afternoon to listen to us and to meet us and to hopefully exchange in a dialogue. My name's Bill Herlock, and I have the privilege of running for Upper Montclair, 1st Ward. And my wife, Allison, and I have lived in the 1st Ward for 13 years now. And we're very proud of the fact that both of our children attend Montclair's public schools. My daughter's at Glenfield, my son's at Northeast. We've both been very active in our community. My wife, Allison, was president of the PTA at Northeast and treasurer. I've coached in the T-ball and soccer leagues. I served on the Capital Finance Committee for 4 years. I'm on the Board of Trustees for Outpost in the Burbs. I also serve as a Board of Trustee member for the North Presbytery, and we've been very active in our community. And the reason that I decided to run was because whether on the soccer fields or at the school functions or just walking about town, invariably I heard at some point, somebody said, as soon as my kids are out of high school, we're out of here. I didn't want to hear that anymore. We're losing our sense of community in this town, and that's important. There are a lot of serious issues that need to be addressed. Some of the candidates have just alluded to the tax issue. Some people have alluded to the capital finance issues, our debt. But there's also certain quality of life issues, particularly here in the 1st Ward, that need to be addressed. We've got graffiti on the back of Northeast School for the first time that I've lived here. We have our parks are in need of serious attention. And there's a lot of quality of life issues that need to be addressed, and quite frankly haven't been. One of the things that I'd like to do, if I'm fortunate enough to get elected, is to start holding town meetings in the First Ward. And what a better place to hold them than in this building. Thank you. I also want to make sure that this building, that we have the funds available and that we can use this building in appropriate ways going forward. Whether it be with our library services, holding public meetings like I just alluded to, or other sources of use that we can use for this building. If elected, and I'm fortunate enough to have your support, I'm committed to addressing these issues. I'm an attorney by trade, but please don't hold that against me. Save the attorney jokes for the end of the presentation, if you would. I've worked for a member of U.S. Congress. I've worked for a member of British Parliament. I understand what constituent service is and the importance of that. I've served in Washington as well as here in New Jersey in a political sense, working with constituent issues. And it's something that we need to address. Education is very important to me. I'm also an adjunct professor at Seton Hall Law School. I'm a partner in a law firm. We have offices in New York and New Jersey. I have an active practice here in New Jersey, and I've had for several years. And I understand the issues that are facing Montclair, and I want to make a difference, and I'm hoping for your support and your vote on May 8th. And again, I thank you all for your time and for coming today.
Excuse me, John. There's a couple of chairs back here if you folks want to come in and sit down. One back here as well.
Good afternoon. My name is Patricia Hudd, and I am a candidate for counselor at large. The question comes, Pat, why should you run? And I'm reminded of a famous quote by Helen Keller. I am only one, but I am one. I can't do everything, but I can do something. And I'm not going to allow what I can't do to do what I can do. And that's why I come to you today as a candidate for council at large. As we go around the community, I have been a resident of Montclair for 50 years. Graduated from Montclair High School, taught at Montclair State, a graduate of Elmira College in upstate New York, a graduate of Howard University in Washington, D.C., postgraduate work at Christ Church College in Canterbury, England, postgraduate work at St. Andrews University in Scotland. If you want to know about Pat Hudd, know that she is a people person. And it takes leadership. We are faced with very difficult times. And you need leadership that is not afraid to make the tough decisions. I stand before you and I tell you that there are certain things in Montclair that must be sacred cows. The police is a sacred cow. Fire is a sacred cow. Libraries are a sacred cow. Education in Montclair is a sacred cow. And I will work diligently to support those efforts. Few of you do not know, but from 1995 to 1998, I served as the Deputy County Administrator for Essex County. In that position, I assisted in the day-to-day activities in this county. So we not only have to work to keep our taxes down in the town, we have to also work to make sure that every dime we send to the county comes back to Montclair. We have to make sure that Anderson Park, which is a county park, is taken care of by the sheriff. We have to make sure that Glenfield Park on the other side is supervised by the sheriff. We have to make sure that every county road, and a county road is any road that goes into more than one town, that when it snows, that the county will be there to maintain it. When there's potholes, the county will be there to maintain it. Few people really know what your county dollars are doing. In 1995, the federal government mandated that Essex County build a $30 million juvenile detention center. I know because I supervised that project. In 1995, there was a county roller rink that had been closed for 2 years. And it was through my supervision and efforts that we got it open as a privatized roller rink in Branchwood Park. So we not only have to worry about Montclair, but we also have to worry about the county. If you want to know what type of person I am, I'm just an ordinary gal trying to do an extraordinary thing. And that's what I bring to the township of Montclair. An ordinary girl trying to do an extraordinary thing. Now we know our taxes are high. Clean streets, safe streets, pick up the trash, and once in a while, come and get my garbage and my junk. If you can vote for Pat Hurd, you can vote for 2 councilors at large. Go to A, B, C, D, E, and hit G for her. Thank you.
Tried to rejigger the alphabetical order. All of that, but here I am. Hi, I'm Jeff Jacobson. I'm running for council in the 3rd Ward. I've probably been in Montclair for a shorter time than every other candidate running. My wife and I arrived here about 5 years ago. And when I got here, I didn't know how close Montclair was to the point where it had to recognize that it can't tax anymore and it can't borrow anymore. I had the privilege of working in Philadelphia under Mayor Ed Rendell when Philadelphia, whether it realized it or whether the state made it realize it, I don't know, but the state told, the state of Pennsylvania, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, told Philadelphia that it can't borrow anymore and it can't tax anymore. And Philadelphia elected Ed Rendell, and it reformed its way out of a huge budget problem, cutting hundreds of millions of dollars out of the municipal budget without raising taxes. Some services were cut, but I'm proud to say that in the streets department where I worked, the majority of the savings that we generated, our department was the largest generator of savings in the city. We did it through reform. We, in a overwhelmingly democratic city with a very powerful union culture, we outsourced trash transfer, not collection, transfer. We did a new contract for disposal, and that one stroke right there was a 9-digit, over $100 million savings for the city. So the good news for Montclair is that the majority of candidates, in fact nearly all the candidates you're going to hear from, are all saying, we tax too much, we borrow too much. The difference is, not every candidate has been specific about how they're going to fix the problem. The 4 Montclair slate, I bring apologies from Harvey Susswine, our mayoral candidate, and Tim Barr, our at-large candidate. They had committed to someone else who would open their home to us today, and they couldn't be here. But I'm here with my running mates, Bill Herlock and Walter Springer. If you go to our website at 4montclair.com, we have ideas there on introducing competition in municipal services, which I know from my experience, and we all believe, can save us over $1 million. We have ideas on police, which you bet is a sacred cow, but interesting fact. We have a little less than 80 police officers and detectives being supervised by 33 supervisors. We have a chief, 2 deputy chiefs, 4 captains, 11 lieutenants, and 15 sergeants. That's a lot of supervisors. Now, I worked 3 years for the University of Pennsylvania Police Department. I bow to no one in my respect and admiration for the work that our police officers do. This is not an attack on anyone. The reality is that our shift platoons out on the street, we only have 18 officers in a platoon. Now they're not 18 officers on the street because that's 7 days a week. At any given moment, that platoon might only be fielding 11 or 12 officers. We need more officers on patrol. And with respect, I know we need to create room for supervisors, we need to have upward mobility, we need to keep our officers in Montclair. But 33 supervisors supervising 79 or so officers and detectives, I'd like to change that ratio. So I've said not everyone has been specific. I believe we have. I believe that our slate has more ideas out there. We've said we said where we would save money. We've said, frankly, where we won't save money. We're not going to cut police patrols. We're not going to close a fire station unless we've got a shared services deal with a neighboring town that will get coverage for all of Montclair just as safely as we have it now. We're not going to cut the Bellevue branch. We've committed to making sure that the branch stays open more days than it is now. We're pleased that the council is putting funding in. We're going to sustain that funding. We've said that we've said that it's a disgrace what's happened at the community pre-K, and we're going to get it back to its earlier levels. Is it a frill? People can disagree about that. I think it's an essential part of Montclair. I think that it's a good compromise to what we have, and I want to get it back to where it was. But I think that, as I say, we've been more specific, and with respect to my own experience, as I say, I've got 3 years working for a police department. I've got 2 years working for the city of Philadelphia. Since then, I'm a lawyer. But I'm also a partner at one of the top firms in the world, Bellevue in Plimpton, New York. I've been working there for 15 years. I became a partner.
My sister works.
Oh, really? Oh, we should talk. I've been a partner in the firm since 2005. My wife and I have got 2 little daughters. I've got a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. We love it here. We're not going anywhere. They're taking me. Linda Grabenstein sold me my house. They're taking me out of the house feet first. So I just want to help. I want to do what I can. So I hope, if those of you who are in the 3rd Ward, I hope that our slate and that I have your support on May 8th. Thank you.
Thanks, John. I appreciate it. I'm Rich Murray. I am the 1st Ward Councilman right here for this branch. First, I have to come in and I have to say, Robert Jackson, we had an earlier commitment where we were at somebody's house, and therefore I have to use the, as we put it, the get out of jail free card, because that house was Rose Callie's. So Robert Jackson's coming from Rose's house now, and of course he's not going to miss something associated with the library, and you know, I agree that we should all be here and have the ability to talk, but Rose Callie is up here, and I know I'm here. So I had to listen to Rose and say, go to Rose's house, then come here. But first I want to welcome everybody. Again, I'm Rich Murnick. I'm running for the 1st Ward Councilman position again that I've held now for 4 years. I live right up the street on Gordonhurst Avenue. My church is right next door here at the Unitarian Church, or excuse me, at St. Cassian's Church. I got married at the Unitarian Church 19 years ago on the other side of town. My church is next door. My office is at 210 Bellevue Avenue, which is right up the street here. I do know Montclair, and I do know Montclair specifically right in this area. I think I eat every single meal either at the Charbroil, Daikichi, or Jackie's Grillette. So when I say I'm local, I can't get more local than that. And again, this branch here, and Jerry Freed is here, I know Catherine is here, we just voted to put the funding back into the library, to put additional funds for the library. There's 2 things, before you applaud, there's 2 things that I will not vote for. I will not vote for this budget unless there's 2 things in there. One happens to be the pre-K, which Jeff alluded to. It means dear to me, and also this library here. Those funds that we dedicated for the library system are, and I hope that the library comes out very strong, and I'm sure Sue Ridley's here, and she hears me, that those additional funds go to keep this branch open 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. If I said Monday through Saturday, would everybody applaud, or no? Thank you, Pat. There you go. So again, this library is dear. We can't turn this library into a gymnasium. We can't turn it into a law firm. I know we've got a lot of lawyers up here that would love to have office space here in town. We can't have it be a law firm. It's got to stay as a library. Montclair State wants to come in and maybe put a portion as a museum, we could do that, in which to have some art display. Those are the things that we need for a building as precious as this, and I hope that can happen. 4 years ago when I got elected, obviously 2008 was a time in not just Montclair, but around the country, around the world, that 2008 until now, it's been a real difficult time to be a local politician, to be a national politician. But just think about it, from 2008, the property values have gone down. We've lost jobs here in town. I've gotten emails from certain people here in this room that came to me and said, Rich, I lost my job. I can't afford to stay. I don't have the ability of making a payment for a tax, let alone a mortgage, or feeding my family. I've gotten those conversations. I've gotten those conversations and emails from people in the First Ward and all across town. What I want to do is continue what I've started, which is helping to make Montclair, as we all put it, sustainable, come in with different, first I have to commend all the candidates that are here, and I take my hat off to each and every one of you for coming out, and you can shake your hand, and making that ability in which to make Montclair better. And again, on May 8th, I hope you come out. I'm running on the Montclair 2012 slate. I know the rest of the members will be coming in, and we are line A, as we put it. And thank you all for coming out today.
Thanks very much. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Robin Schleger, and I'm running for the 2nd Ward Council seat on the Montclair 2012 slate. I've lived in Montclair for 20 years. My husband, Ken Schleger, is the editor of New Jersey Monthly Magazine. There's nothing I could do to get Montclair up on the top 100 towns to live in, but I'll see what I could do. We have 2 children. My son has graduated from Montclair High School, went all through the public school system. He's at the University of Delaware. And my daughter is a senior at Montclair High School, getting ready to graduate and attending Tulane University in September. I have my regular job I've held for the past 12 years. I'm the Associate Director of the Montclair Fund for Educational Excellence, the MFEE, where we raise money for the Montclair Public Schools. I am a big proponent of the Montclair Public Schools. I think they are not a so-so school system. I think it's an excellent school system. Sure, it could use some improvement, it could always use some tweaking, but I am very proud to have sent my kids to the school system, and I am very a big proponent of the schools. I have been PTA president at Nishwain School, PTA president at Hillside School. I sat on the district's revenue committee this past year. We looked at many ways in which to raise money through the schools. We have some big plans, and they're about to be implemented in the next couple of months. I did hold the seat in the town council in the 2nd Ward in 2004, 2008, and I was proud to serve with Jerry Tobin, who's here this afternoon. And I had really, it was a good 4 years. It was very hard. It was very rewarding, but I'm happy to step up to do it again. Since the 4 years I did run on the council, the past 4 years that I wasn't on, I did not stay home. I've been very active. I sit on the July 4th parade committee, which I was happy to raise money. We raise about $30,000 a year. We just had a big fundraiser this past Friday night. We had a beefsteak dinner. We raised $7,000. I also sit on the First Night committee to keep First Night alive in our town, which I think is a really nice thing that we have to offer. When I was on the council from 2004 to 2008, I raised $300,000 to build the all-access children's playground. It was built purely with not 1 cent of township money. It was done with private donations and grants that we were able to get. I hope to do some more of that work. The park in the 2nd Ward that's crying out for help is Rand Park, which is adjacent to the George Ennis Annex. I have a commitment from C.J. Miller from his tree service to make benches for us free of charge. We have planned to build a gazebo, and I plan to do some really nice things there. And I'm doing that also through the school action team at the high school, which I sit on and co-chair the school pride committee. A lot of people say to me, well, Robin, you've done this, why do you want to do it again? It's like having a baby. You have a baby, but you go back and you have another baby, and you forget some of the tough stuff, but you only remember the really good stuff. And so I do remember the really good stuff and what makes Montclair so, so special. And I'm very proud to be a resident here for 20 years and hope to be here another 20 years. Thanks very much.
Thank you. I'm Bob Russo. I was the councilman for this area for 8 years between 1992 and 2000. My wife Christine is here with me. We used this library many, many times for meetings of constituents. We used the downstairs children's room. I had a meeting as frequently as Councilwoman Baskerville has had, once a month when I was first councilman. And this was the great place for people to meet in the first ward to complain to me about every possible issue. And I tried to deal with those issues on a daily basis. As a full-time employee running the Lemon Law, the Consumer Affairs Office for New Jersey, I was the Consumer Affairs Lemon Law Director for many, many years. I've retired 4 years ago and just teach at Montclair State right now. I teach a course called Urban Administration, which my students are studying combining towns and combining their services. And that's the new trend, the new way we're going to be able to save money, the only way really we're going to be able to save money. My students said to me the other day, Professor Russo, why don't we just have a town called Montbloom Ridge, which would be the combination of the three towns that adjoin each other, really. We all kind of connect around Brookdale Park. I told them that's not going to happen. But, you know, the two Princetons just combined, Princeton Borough, Princeton Township. For years, the fight was over getting them to combine. They have the same name, the same region, but they had this roadblock of psychologically not wanting to combine. Well, they have combined. I met with the mayor of Princeton the other day, Princeton Borough, Princeton Township. They're going to give up, one is going to give up the seat and let the other be the mayor. We may need to do more like that. We've got the Glenridge contract for fire services, which I was happy to be part of at the very beginning, and the renewal of it in 2003 when I was elected mayor. We renewed that at a very high level of cost to Glenridge, and of course now the contract has less revenue for us, but we wouldn't have had it at all if we didn't do something to keep that contract. That is the way we have to go with police, with the administrative level of government. We're not talking about taking away the identity of Verona, Cedar Grove, and Glenridge, but those surrounding small towns could use the services of Montclair as the center of government services. We could sell more of our services to those towns, get a revenue stream that will help us keep the library open, keep the schools, keep our services. We may be able to go in that direction, which Princeton and other towns are doing. This is the way of the future. You know, we always talk about you should practice what you preach. Well, I want to practice what I teach. And I teach this public administration at Rutgers School of Public Affairs and Administration in Newark. I teach it at Montclair State. I have a lot of time to devote to this now. I would like to serve one more term at large as your council member to help the town with Robert Jackson, who's the candidate for mayor on the Montclair 2012 slate. I moved here in 1988 when Robert was mayor for 1 year. And that 1 year as mayor showed me that he could do a great job. We rotated the mayor then. We did not directly elect the mayor until 1988. That 1 year gave me a perspective on Robert Jackson. And I want to tell you that he would be a great mayor for a full term this time. So I'm running with Robert Jackson, with Rich McMahon, who lives in this area, off Valley Road, for at-large, with Robert Schleger, who you just heard from, with Rich Murnick, First Ward Councilman right now. He has big shoes to fill from my years, right? But I think he's doing a good job. And I have also one other candidate, Sean Spiller, running with me, a young teacher from Wayne, who lives in Montclair, owns a home. He's running for Third Ward Council. I ask you to consider all of them. There's all good candidates here, all good people. I know them all, okay? I even know some of their parents. The thing I'd like to say to all of you, I'm glad there's a great turnout, is I want to preserve this library. When Andrew Carnegie gave this library to so many towns and so many cities across the United States, he didn't mean for it to be shut down 100 years later. And I will fight very hard to maintain this library branch, to maintain our library services, to maintain our public schools, and to maintain our public services. People talk about outsourcing and bringing out you know, the garbage collection to another outside source. I'm not for doing that. I'm for selling our services possibly to other towns and bringing in revenue. So I ask you to give me the chance to serve once again as almost a volunteer, because I'm going to turn back my salary to the library, to the pre-K, to the 4th of July parade, and to all the groups that need assistance in town. Thank you.
Wow.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Good, I don't need the mic. My name is Walter Springer. First of all, thank you for hosting this event, and thank you all for coming out and showing this great Montclair spirit. Again, I'm Walter Springer. I'm running for 2nd Ward Council on the 4 Montclair slate. I've lived here for 22 years. My family goes back to the early 1900s. My grandmother graduated in 1918 from the high school. But that's not really why you're going to vote for me. And let's talk about the real issues. You've heard a lot of different things here. Folks have talked about new ratables, shared and privatized services, debt reduction. But what you guys need to hear, and what I'm going to tell you, is what I will do as a candidate on day one. What I'd like to do is have performance evaluations given. Performance evaluations that will measure every check that's written to anyone who works here, or has a job with us, or has a company that has anything to do with this township. It's important that we know the services that we're paying for, we are receiving. Everybody talks about we're going to share this and we're going to privatize that, but we don't even really know what we're paying for. And before we can go and talk to any other town about sharing anything, we need to know what we have in our own town. Number one. Number two is education. Everybody talks about education, how important education is. Yes, I'm going to give you a little bit of background about me in the back end of my speech about what I've done in education. But what we need to do is we need to strengthen the high school. The big pink elephant in this room is the fact that my running mate Bill Herlock talked about is that everybody loves the elementary school. Everybody loves the middle school. And then all of a sudden, we start to lose good and strong families at the high school level. What we need to do is strengthen the high school, continue the good work that Mr. Earl is doing to make sure that the high school reaches the standards that the middle schools and the elementary schools have. That is important. No one is saying it. I'm telling you that because I'm involved in the schools. Okay? Yes, the schools are good, but at the high school level, you can all read the papers, there's a drop-off. I believe part of that drop-off is because we have families that look at the option of the high school and say, I want to choose something else. Whether they can afford it or not, that's what they do. The third thing that I would do, if elected, on day one, is to reinvest with the Capital Finance Committee. That's one volunteer group that we need to listen to, use their expertise to help us get out of this hole that we have dug ourselves. I'm not going to blame past councils or past managers, but the reality is, guys, the elephant in the room, we have a problem, okay, and we need to address it directly. Now, by dismissing volunteers who are helping us, and we go out and we hire a consultant. We have someone that's willing to do that. And the Capital Finance Committee is just one of many volunteer groups that I know we can tap into to get what we need to get us on the right direction. There's a lot of good families in here. There's a lot of good people in this township. In the last 10 years, I have volunteered PTA executive in Northeast. I've been PTA president at Mount Hebron for 2 years, and presently I'm the school action team liaison. We have done things at those schools that have never been done before. We have done things at those schools where people told us in positions of power, you cannot do. If you guys want to know about that, I'll tell you that afterwards. I have no problem explaining to you exactly what we have done. We have good resources in this town, but we must use them. It's important. For the last 10 years, I've been a volunteer. Volunteer at schools, I volunteer with youth activities, I volunteer in my church right here at St. Catherine's. And when I decided to run, there's so many things. People talk to you about all kinds of stuff. And when I decided to run, I said, you know what? I go to St. Catherine's. I was PTA president at this school, and I had never been in this library. Never. But once I said that I was going to step in front of you and ask you for your vote, I had to come in here and see. So I came in on a Monday, and I saw Ray, and I saw the vibrancy of this building. I came middle of the day. There were older folks here using the internet. There were young families downstairs using the downstairs facility. And I said, you know what are we talking about here? We need to have ideas to keep this place open. We have a school here. I know Mr. Whitlock would love to have some access to this building if we can figure out how to do it. We have a school right here at St. Catherine's. Maybe we can have, remember, they have one classroom per grade. Maybe they could come over here and use this building. We need to think outside of the box. We haven't done that, and that's what I'd like to do. 10 years,
I've been a volunteer. 10 years, when there was a problem, I went after it. The folks that know me said, I will volunteer. Now, I have to ask for your vote, and I hope that you'll give me that on May 8th. Thank you very much.
I'm probably not as loud as Walter, who was one of our baseball coaches.
That's right, I forgot about that.
And actually, Robin's one of our team moms in softball, T-ball coach. My name is Chris Swenson. I'm a candidate for the 3rd Ward on the Real Progress Montclair slate. Is anyone here from the 3rd Ward? Anyone know what the 3rd Ward is? We'll talk later about that. No, thanks for hosting this. This is a very important facility. It's one that I toured with Councilor Vernick last fall, I think, when it looked like a real crisis in trying to keep this open before the volunteer setup had been arranged. I looked at the bottom floor to move a business into. At that time it was called the Tutoring Club. I couldn't quite do it, but I'm glad the volunteers have got this open. It's really important. It's really important. I see the kids all the time at my business. I can tell you this is it's vital to get this open. So my background, educationally, I graduated from Yale. Undergrad, I also have a master's in public and private management from Yale. My career in business, I worked for Senator Bill Bradley, first on a campaign, then in Washington, D.C. on a Senate staff. I worked with New Jersey municipalities, helping them get federal grants and contracts. I went to Wall Street and worked as an investment banker. Before that was probably even thought of worse than lawyers. I worked in corporate finance, helped take technology companies public and raised venture capital for a number of technology firms. I left Wall Street to run a number of small companies, so I have a broad business background as a chief financial and operating officer of a software company that got public. I was a president of a publishing company in South Jersey. I received 2 New Jersey Press Association Public Service Awards. I ran an internet company that was the New Jersey Technology Council Startup Company of the Year back in 1999, I think. So I've had a broad business background. My latest business kept me closer to home. I owned and operated, until very recently, the Montclair Tutoring Club over on Grove Street. It gave me a different window and perspective into the community. I'll talk about that a little bit. My community background, I've lived here for 19 years. My parents are from here originally. I guess someone was at the library last weekend. We made a presentation down there. I said my mother was born in Montclair at Mountainside Hospital in 1924. Okay, that's Glen Ridge. I heard it's Glen Ridge, but to me it's Montclair. My brothers were both born there too. I've been involved, probably best known for starting the Montclair Baseball and Softball Club, which is where I know a number of people up here. I also founded the Football Booster Club in its latest iteration at Montclair High School. I've been involved, I ran the, co-chaired the 3rd Ward Action Committee with Shelley Lombard. About 7 years ago, we prevented some overdevelopment on Llewellyn Llewellyn Street. We actually got some of the zoning codes changed so that neighborhoods had a better chance of not being overdeveloped. More importantly, for this election, I've been on the Revenue Committee for the Board of Education and the Budget Committee for the Board of Education. And there are things we found in the Budget Committee of the Board of Education which I think are applicable to the town, and trying to get the town's finances back in order. The Budget Committee was one that was listened to by the Board of Ed. And the Board of Ed put everything on the table. They thought they were facing a crisis. We discovered that, instead of a $200,000 projected surplus, it was $11 million. And that, we're still paying the price for that. I see Jim Zorich here. We're still paying the price for that. The policymakers did not have the right numbers back then. Hopefully they'll fix that. The things are being put in place to make that process a better process for the Board of Ed. That's 3, 4? Okay, very quickly as I wrap up. I apologize, I went too long. I'm running Real Progress Montclair, the 3rd Ward. Take a look. I think Karen Turner will be a great mayor. We'd be the first directly elected woman mayor. I think the town could use that. Thanks very much.
Hi, thank you everyone for coming, and thank you for hosting this event, the Upper Montclair Business Association and the library. It's a wonderful building. I'm very passionate about historical preservation, so to me this kind of emulates Montclair, and I'd love to keep it the same. A little background about me. I first was introduced to Montclair about 18 years ago by my husband. We lived in the city, and he grew up here, and we were getting ready to settle down and start our family, and he brought me out to Montclair and showed me around. I absolutely fell in love with it. I lived in a few different places growing up, and this kind of is like a patchwork quilt, this being Montclair. It's like a patchwork quilt of all the different places I grew up as a child. And I absolutely love that it's not only is a diverse community, but it supports diversity and across the spectrum. And that's very important to me. And like I said, we moved out here 17 years ago. We were neighbors to Catherine Weller-Deming, lived on Cooper right across the street from here. And had our 2 daughters. They were both born at Mountainside. I don't know if it's Glenridge or Montclair, but I can check that. To me, it's Montclair. You know, and my husband, when we first showed me around town, he was kind of funny, very proud guy. He drove me around, showed me Edgemont School, where he hit his first home run from the baseball field there. I guess he hit the ball over to the island. The field used to be set up differently. He was very proud of that. We hear about it every time we go past that park. And he also went to Mount Hebron School, and he was one of the first group of students to be integrated and was bused to Nishuane. So he attended Nishuane, and he also attended Montclair High School. I was a public school kid. I went through most of my public school years in Maine, and I went to state school in Maine also, and then moved to New York after to have a career in international accounting, where I worked at KPMG and practiced as a CPA in both the audit and the international tax departments. So why am I running for mayor? Like I said, we were living out here for 17 years. I absolutely love the community. I was very involved in volunteering and running different nonprofit organizations out here in different finance positions, president positions. Got to know a lot of nonprofits, did a lot of hands-on volunteer work. And when my husband, who grew up here, started saying, you know, it doesn't work, you know, this is unsustainable. Our taxes have increased over 80% in the last 10 years. I'm like, oh, no, it's fine. And then he kept saying it, so I'm like, geez, you know, I have a background in finance, let me see what I can do to help. So I started looking at the numbers with Concerned Citizens of Montclair, and I realized, geez, he's right. From 2000 to 2012, sorry, Russo, but Mayor Russo, former Mayor Russo, but our debt from 2000 to 2012 increased 198%, almost 200%. The taxes we pay for school and municipal operations, and you know, I threw the sewer back in there because at one point it was pulled out. That's increased 93%. And as much as we want to maintain the values that we all love here, we've seen decreased funding for the library. We've seen decreased funding for the pre-K center and the scholarships. We've seen services diminish. And all of these candidates here are very lovely people and very enthusiastic, hardworking, and passionate about Montclair. But the difference with Real Progress Montclair is we've spent the last 2 years researching how did these increases happen? What's going on? What can we do differently? And we do have ideas expressed in how we would do things to free up money so that we could preserve the values that we love in this town. Within 90 to 120 days of being elected, we would improve transparency. We would put easy-to-read budgets on the town website. We would put comprehensive schedules of the outstanding debt. We would also put organizational charts on the website. Within 6 months, we would thoroughly look at the cost to deliver sanitation and recycling services, fully included. Maintenance of the vehicles, capital cost, fuel, etc. Compare it with what outside agencies can do for us. Compare the level of service, and go back to our current workers and say, can you match this? We don't want to let anyone go because we know they're all good people. We want to see if they can deliver the same or better. We also, know that, as well as we were told earlier, the police department, the ratio of manager to non-manager is pretty is pretty high, but that's actually a better department. Our fire department is two non-management to one management position. And the police is better than some of the other departments. So we've done our homework in terms of how we got to this point, and we've researched what other communities have done successfully to reduce their cost and maintain their same values in their community. So I do think Real Progress Montclair has done their homework, and we have the right skill set and open-minded for new ideas to keep Montclair moving forward. Thank you.
Hosts for providing this opportunity for people to hear from the candidates and make decisions about who they choose to support on May 8th. I know everybody in this room is going to be voting, right? Nice. All right. So a little bit about me. I've been in Montclair for 33 years, which you might be able to tell by looking as my whole life. And when I left for college, I had a stark realization that Montclair was pretty awesome and quite a bit better than a lot of other communities. And it was shocking how much more cultured I was than many of my fellow students. Sure, we don't go to Gilgamesh, but many people did not have a true appreciation of what cultures the world is made up of. And growing up in Montclair and being immersed in the vibrant diversity and dedication to arts and intellectualism that the people who come here to make homes had me just far and away more prepared and better able to succeed than many of the students I went to school with. You hear the anecdote a lot about the for sale sign going out when the project graduation ribbons go up. Well, I can tell you that many of the students that I graduated with weren't even able to come back and live in Montclair to start their families. People talk about people beginning to be forced out of homes in Montclair. That's a long-standing problem. Many of you know people who've had to leave the community because they couldn't afford to stay here, or people who've made extreme sacrifices to hold on because that's how much they love Montclair. And most of us who live in Montclair want to stay, and we want to stay, as other people have mentioned, until our last day. And as your counselor at large and deputy mayor, we've gotten a lot done in the last 4 years, and they've been 4 very difficult years, as everybody's aware of. When you talk about debt, we've been very aggressive with our debt and going permanent to take advantage of the low interest rates, because those of us on the council now are all planning on staying in Montclair for a very long time and didn't want to take advantage of any one-year budget gimmicks to come up with 0% that was unsustainable and unwise. And we've made very many difficult choices in terms of cutting funding for beloved institutions, and the hardest thing that we had to do was cut funding for the library. And none of us wanted to do that. That was something that we had to do. And the beautiful silver lining to that terrible dark cloud is that the volunteers stepped up and opened this building, is that the people of Montclair put themselves forth to serve the whole community, and what a beautiful success story that is out of such a tragic turn of events. We're very blessed after the very difficult cuts that we've made in previous years, since we were able to have a manager who was willing to make cuts, and this year we're able to restore funding for the library. And that's a great consolation to us, because the library was really a victim of its success, because in 2006, 2007, and 2008 the library was flat funded at the 2005 level. And so the cuts in 2009, 10, and 11 were that much deeper and harder to absorb. But I am eternally grateful to our excellent library director, David Hinckley, to the members of the Library Board of Trustees, and to the volunteers who have really made the difference and gotten these beautiful doors open. Growing up on Cooper Ave, I spent quite a bit of time here. I probably came and got 20 books and brought them back the next day and took another 20 nearly every day in my childhood. And that was a tremendous investment that the community made in me. And I'm very excited to be running with the designation of paying it forward, because that's truly what I'm doing. I'm trying to keep the for sale sign out, not just till the graduation ribbon, project graduation ribbons go up, but to even get my young children into our excellent public schools that I was so fortunate to benefit from. So I hope all of you really study the candidates and really study the records of the candidates and what people have done for the community thus far, and make wise decisions about who can do the best for Montclair for the next 4 years. Thank you.
While I promised question and answer period, we did not plan that in the pre-advance notice. So if you have questions, come up and speak to the candidates and enjoy the refreshments. And please brush off your library cards and come in here, use this library and talk it up and get everybody in here. Yes?
Would you just tell us your name?
John Downing, Friends of the Bellevue Avenue Library.
Thank you.
There you go. Come in.